The cruel millionaire forced a waitress to play the violin, but when he heard her music, the Gilded Rose was the kind of restaurant where the wealthy came to see and be seen. Its opulent decor, with crystal chandeliers and gold-leafed ceilings, was matched only by the exorbitant prices on its menu. It was in this lavish setting that Lily Chen, a 25-year-old waitress, found herself working double shifts to make ends meet. Lily's story was one of dreams deferred. A classically trained violinist since childhood, she had once been destined for greatness. Her parents, both musicians in the city's symphony orchestra, had nurtured her talent from a young age. Lily had been on track to attend the prestigious Juilliard School when tragedy struck. A car accident left her father paralyzed, and her mother struggling to care for him while keeping their heads above water financially. Without hesitation, Lily had set aside her violin and her dreams, taking on whatever jobs she could to help support her family. The Gilded Rose, with its generous tips, had seemed like a godsend, but the long hours and demanding clientele were slowly wearing her down. On the other side of the restaurant sat Victor Blackwood, a 45-year-old tech mogul known as much for his cruel whims as for his vast fortune. Victor had built his empire on cutthroat tactics and a complete disregard for anyone he deemed beneath him. To him, the world was divided into two types of people: those who could be useful to him and those who were disposable. Victor's childhood had been one of privilege and pressure. The only son of a wealthy industrialist, he had been groomed from birth to take over the family business. Emotions were seen as weakness, and compassion as a liability. Victor had learned his lessons well, surpassing even his father's expectations in his ruthless pursuit of success. As Lily approached Victor's table to take his order, neither of them could have guessed how their lives were about to intersect. Victor, bored with his usual sycophants and looking for entertainment, noticed the calluses on Lily's fingers, telltale signs of a string instrument player. A cruel idea began to form in his mind. Little did he know that his attempt to humiliate a waitress would set in motion a chain of events that would challenge everything he thought he knew about success, talent, and the human spirit. The Gilded Rose hummed with the quiet murmur of expensive conversations and the clink of fine china. Lily approached Victor Blackwood's table with practiced poise, her smile fixed firmly in place, despite the exhaustion tugging at her edges. "Good evening, sir. Welcome to the Gilded Rose. May I take your order?" Lily's voice was soft but clear, a hint of her musical training evident in her precise diction. Victor barely glanced up from his menu, his cold gray eyes dismissing her as just another servant. But as Lily reached to fill his water glass, Victor's gaze caught on her hands. The slight thickening of her fingertips, the calluses that no amount of lotion could completely smooth away. He recognized these signs instantly. A cruel smirk played at the corners of Victor's mouth. "Tell me," he said, his voice dripping with false politeness, "what instrument do you play?" Lily froze for a moment, caught off guard by the unexpected question. I used to play the violin, sir," she answered hesitantly. Victor's eyes gleamed with malicious interest. "Used to? Such a shame to let talent go to waste. I don't suppose you'd care to give us a little performance?" Lily's cheeks flushed with embarrassment. "I'm sorry, sir, but I don't play anymore. And even if I did, I'm working. I couldn't possibly." "Nonsense," Victor interrupted, his voice hardening. He raised his hand, snapping his fingers to catch the attention of the restaurant manager. "I'm sure your employer would be delighted to accommodate a simple request from a valued customer." The manager, a nervous man named Gerald, hurried over. "Is everything all right, Mr. Blackwood?" Victor's smile was all teeth. "Everything's fine, Gerald. I was just telling your charming waitress here that I'd love to hear her play the violin. You do have one around, don't you? For your little weekend quartets?" Gerald's eyes widened in alarm. He knew of the restaurant's violin, kept for the string quartet that played on weekends. But he also knew the risk of refusing Victor Blackwood anything. The man was infamous for ruining businesses that displeased him. Of course, Mr. Blackwood. I'll fetch it right away." Gerald shot Lily an apologetic look before scurrying off. Lily stood rooted to the spot, her heart pounding. "Please, sir," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I haven't played in years. I couldn't possibly." You can, and you will, Victor cut her off, his tone brooking no argument. Unless, of course, you'd prefer to find yourself unemployed. The threat hung in the air between them, clear and cutting. Lily thought of her parents, of the mounting medical bills, of the rent due next week. She couldn't afford to lose this job. Gerald returned, a beautiful violin case in his hands. The restaurant had fallen eerily quiet, the other patrons watching the unfolding drama with a mix of discomfort and morbid curiosity. With trembling hands, Lily took the violin from its case. The instrument felt both familiar and foreign in her grasp, a bittersweet reminder of the life she'd left behind. She raised the violin to her shoulder, positioning it under her chin with muscle memory that years of disuse hadn't erased. Victor leaned back in his chair, a self-satisfied smirk on his face. He was expecting a fumbling, awkward performance, something he could mock and use to further humiliate this waitress who had dared to catch his attention. Lily closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and began to play. The first notes of Tchaikovsky's Violin Concerto in D major filled the air, hesitant at first, then growing in confidence. As Lily lost herself in the music, muscle memory took over. Her fingers danced across the strings, coaxing forth a sound of such pure, heart-wrenching beauty that the entire restaurant fell into a stunned silence. Victor's smirk faltered, replaced by a look of genuine surprise. This was no amateur fumbling through a simple tune. This was artistry of the highest caliber, the kind of talent that could fill concert halls and move audiences to tears. As Lily played, tears streaming down her face, the patrons of the Gilded Rose found themselves transported. For a few magical minutes, the restaurant disappeared, replaced by the grandeur of a world-class concert hall. And in that moment, as the final notes faded away, everything changed. The cruel game Victor had intended to play had backfired spectacularly, setting the stage for a transformation that none of them could have anticipated. As the last notes of Tchaikovsky's concerto faded away, the Gilded Rose erupted into thunderous applause. Diners leapt to their feet, their expensive meals forgotten in the wake of the extraordinary performance they had just witnessed. Lily lowered the violin, her cheeks flushed with a mixture of exertion and embarrassment. Victor Blackwood sat frozen in his chair, his usual mask of cool indifference shattered. For the first time in years, he felt something stir within him, a sense of awe, and perhaps a twinge of shame. The cruelty he had intended had instead unveiled a rare and precious talent. As the applause continued, Gerald, the restaurant manager, approached Lily with tears in his eyes. That was incredible, Lily. Why didn't you ever tell us you could play like that?" Lily, still overwhelmed by the emotions that playing had unleashed, could only shake her head. I haven't played in so long. I didn't think I could anymore." From his seat, Victor watched the scene unfold, his mind racing. He had intended to humiliate this waitress, to assert his power over someone he deemed insignificant. Instead, he found himself face to face with a talent that surpassed anything he had encountered in the elite circles he frequented. As the excitement in the restaurant began to die down, Victor made a decision. He stood up and approached Lily, who instinctively took a step back, still wary of the man who had forced her into this situation. "Miss," Victor said, his voice uncharacteristically hesitant, "I owe you an apology. My behavior was inexcusable, but your talent, it's extraordinary. May I ask why you're waiting tables instead of performing on stage?" Lily's eyes filled with tears as she explained her situation. Her father's accident, her family's financial struggles, the dreams she had set aside to help those she loved. As Victor listened, he felt something he hadn't experienced in decades: empathy. He saw in Lily a reflection of the passion and drive that had fueled his own rise to success, but tempered with a compassion and selflessness that he had long ago discarded. In that moment, Victor made a decision that would change both their lives. "Miss Chen," he said, his voice firm but no longer cruel, "I'd like to make you an offer. Let me sponsor your return to music. Full tuition at the conservatory of your choice, living expenses, whatever you need. In return, all I ask is that you pursue your talent to its fullest extent." Lily stared at him in disbelief, unable to process the sudden turn of events. But why? Why would you do this?" Victor's answer surprised even himself. "Because talent like yours shouldn't be lost to the world. And because Because I think I need to remember what it's like to create something beautiful, not just profitable. As the implications of Victor's offer sank in, Lily felt a surge of hope she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. But with it came a wave of doubt and fear. Could she really return to music after so long? And could she trust this man who had, just minutes ago, seemed so cruel? Little did either of them know that this moment of revelation was just the beginning. The journey ahead would challenge them both, forcing Victor to confront the man he had become and offering Lily a chance to reclaim the dreams she had thought lost forever. Lily stood frozen, the weight of Victor's offer hanging in the air between them. The restaurant had fallen silent again. All eyes on the unlikely pair, the waitress with the hidden talent and the notorious millionaire known for his cruelty. I don't know what to say, Lily finally managed, her voice barely above a whisper. Victor, unused to hesitation in the face of his generosity, or more accurately his power, felt a flicker of impatience. But something in Lily's expression, a mixture of hope and wariness, made him pause. You don't have to decide right now, he said, surprising himself with his patience. Take some time to think it over. Here's my card. Call me when you've made a decision. As Victor returned to his table and Lily retreated to the kitchen, the consequences of the evening's events began to unfold. For Lily, the decision was far from simple. The offer was a dream come true, a chance to return to her passion, to pursue the career she had thought lost forever. But it came from a man who had, just an hour ago, tried to humiliate her for his own amusement. Could she trust him? And even if she could, was it fair to her parents to abandon her responsibilities for her own dreams? That night, as Lily sat by her father's bedside, gently explaining the evening's events, she was surprised by his response. "Lilyflower," he said, using the childhood nickname that always made her smile, "you've sacrificed so much for us. Maybe it's time to take a chance on yourself." Her mother, overhearing from the doorway, nodded in agreement. "We never wanted you to give up your music, sweetheart. If this is a genuine opportunity, you should take it." Their support, while touching, only added to Lily's internal conflict. The weight of their expectations, both their desire for her happiness and their unspoken hope for financial security, pressed down on her. Meanwhile, Victor found himself grappling with unfamiliar emotions. The image of Lily playing the violin haunted him, stirring memories of a time before profit margins and hostile takeovers had consumed his life. He remembered the joy of creation, the thrill of building something meaningful. But old habits die hard. As the days passed and he didn't hear from Lily, Victor's impatience grew. He was used to people jumping at his offers, grateful for any crumb from his table. Lily's hesitation both intrigued and irritated him. A week after the incident at the Gilded Rose, Victor's assistant entered his office with a worried expression. "Sir, there's a problem with the Chen sponsorship," she said hesitantly. Victor looked up sharply. "What Chen sponsorship?" The violin player, sir, from the restaurant. You asked me to set up a sponsorship fund for her?" Victor vaguely remembered giving such an order in the emotional aftermath of that evening. "What's the problem?" he snapped. "Well, sir, we can't seem to move forward without her consent, and she hasn't accepted the offer yet." Something snapped inside Victor. Used to getting his way, he couldn't fathom why anyone would hesitate to accept his generosity. In a moment of impulsive anger, he made a decision that would have far-reaching consequences. "Fine," he snarled. "If she doesn't want my help, let's see how she manages without any job at all. Call the Gilded Rose. Tell them to fire her immediately." The assistant paled but nodded, hurrying out to do his bidding. It wasn't until hours later, as Victor sat alone in his penthouse, that the full impact of his actions hit him. He had reacted out of wounded pride and impatience, potentially destroying the very talent he had sought to nurture. The realization left a sour taste in his mouth. For Lily, the consequences of Victor's decision were immediate and devastating. She arrived at work the next day to find Gerald waiting for her, his expression grave. "I'm so sorry, Lily," he said, genuine regret in his voice. "We've been ordered to let you go. I don't have a choice." Lily felt as if the ground had dropped out from beneath her feet. In one cruel moment, she had lost both the job she relied on and the dream she had just begun to reclaim. As she walked home in a daze, Lily's mind raced. How would she support her parents now? How could she have been so foolish as to believe even for a moment that someone like Victor Blackwood could genuinely want to help her? But as she reached her family's small apartment, a steely resolve began to form within her. She had faced adversity before and survived. She would do so again. With trembling hands, she opened the case of the violin she had borrowed from the restaurant, forgotten in the chaos of her firing. As her fingers caressed the strings, a plan began to form. Victor Blackwood had tried to break her, first with humiliation and then with false generosity. But Lily Chen was not so easily broken. She would find a way to pursue her dreams, to support her family, and to show the world, and Victor Blackwood, exactly what she was capable of. As the first notes of her violin filled the small apartment, Lily made a vow to herself. She would succeed, not because of Victor Blackwood's charity, but in spite of his cruelty. And in doing so, she would teach him a lesson he would never forget. While Lily grappled with the consequences of Victor's impulsive decision, a secondary plot was unfolding within the walls of Blackwood Industries. Emily Rhodes, Victor's long-suffering assistant, had watched the events surrounding Lily with growing unease. She had been with the company for 5 years, witnessing Victor's ruthless business practices and cruel whims. But something about this situation felt different. Unbeknownst to Victor, Emily had a hidden talent of her own. A skilled amateur pianist, she had always dreamed of pursuing music professionally. Lily's story resonated deeply with her, stirring long-buried ambitions. As Emily went about her daily tasks, she began to quietly investigate Victor's pattern of behavior. She discovered a trail of broken promises and discarded talents, people Victor had shown momentary interest in, only to cast aside when they didn't immediately meet his expectations. Meanwhile, Victor found himself unusually distracted. The memory of Lily's music haunted him, a constant reminder of the beauty he had encountered and then carelessly destroyed. His work, once all-consuming, now felt hollow. As Victor's mood darkened, his business decisions became increasingly erratic. He snapped at board members, canceled important meetings on a whim, and proposed risky ventures without proper consideration. The company's stock began to fluctuate, and whispers of concern spread through the corridors of Blackwood Industries. Emily, observing all of this, made a bold decision. Using her access to Victor's schedule and contacts, she began to orchestrate a plan. She reached out to some of the talents Victor had previously discarded, including musicians, artists, and innovators whose ideas he had dismissed as unprofitable. Under the guise of a charity event for the company, Emily began to bring these individuals together. Her goal was twofold: to give these forgotten talents a platform and to remind Victor of the human cost of his actions. As she worked on this secret project, Emily also kept tabs on Lily. She discovered that the young violinist had begun playing in subway stations, her music drawing crowds and earning her enough to support her family. Emily made anonymous donations to Lily's impromptu performances, ensuring that word of her talent spread. Victor, oblivious to Emily's machinations, found himself drawn to these subway performances. Without realizing it was Lily, he would often stand in the crowd, lost in the haunting melodies that seemed to speak directly to his troubled soul. One day, as Victor listened to the anonymous subway violinist, he was approached by a young entrepreneur whose innovative green energy project he had dismissed months ago. The entrepreneur, recognizing Victor, began to passionately explain how he had refined his idea, making it both environmentally impactful and potentially very profitable. Intrigued despite himself, Victor agreed to a meeting. It was the first positive business interaction he'd had in weeks, and it left him feeling oddly energized. As these parallel stories unfolded, Emily's secret project, Lily's subway performances, and Victor's slow rediscovery of the value of human potential, the stage was set for a convergence that would change all of their lives. Little did any of them know that Emily's charity event, Lily's musical journey, and Victor's personal crisis were all on a collision course. The event that Emily was planning would bring together all the threads of their stories, forcing confrontations and revelations that would shake the foundations of Blackwood Industries and challenge everything Victor thought he knew about success and talent. As the weeks passed, the lives of Victor, Lily, and Emily continued to intertwine in unexpected ways. Lily's subway performances had gained a loyal following. Among her regular listeners was a man in an expensive suit who always stood at the back of the crowd. Lily never got a clear look at his face, but his presence was constant, almost comforting in its regularity. What Lily didn't know was that this mysterious listener was Victor Blackwood himself. Drawn by the hauntingly familiar music, Victor found himself sneaking away from the office whenever he could, losing himself in the anonymous violinist's melodies. One rainy afternoon, as Lily finished her performance, she was surprised to see her mystery admirer approach. Victor, his face partially obscured by an umbrella, dropped a business card into her violin case, along with a generous tip. "You have remarkable talent," he said, his voice oddly familiar to Lily. "If you're ever interested in playing for a wider audience, give me a call." Before Lily could respond, he had disappeared into the crowd. It wasn't until she picked up the card that she realized who her admirer was. The name Victor Blackwood stared up at her, sending a shiver down her spine. Meanwhile, Emily's secret project was coming to fruition. She had gathered a diverse group of talents for the charity event. Painters, musicians, inventors, all of whom had been discarded by Victor at some point. As she coordinated their performances and presentations, Emily found herself forming genuine connections with these individuals, each of whom had a story of resilience in the face of rejection. Victor, unaware of the true nature of the event Emily was planning, had agreed to attend out of obligation. His mind was elsewhere, focused on the subway violinist who had reawakened something within him. As the day of the event approached, tensions rose. Lily, conflicted about Victor's invitation, confided in her parents. "I don't know if I can face him," she admitted, twisting the business card in her hands. After everything that happened, her father reached out, clasping her hand in his. "Lily Flower, sometimes the hardest paths lead to the most beautiful destinations. You've grown so much these past weeks. Maybe it's time to confront your past and show him and yourself just how far you've come." Encouraged by her parents' support, Lily made a decision. She would attend Victor's event, not as a waitress or a charity case, but as the accomplished musician she had become. On the night of the charity gala, Victor arrived at the venue, his mind still on the subway violinist. As he entered the ballroom, he was struck by the eclectic mix of people present. Artists mingled with inventors, musicians chatted with entrepreneurs. It was unlike any corporate event he had ever attended. Emily, seeing Victor's confusion, felt a mix of anxiety and excitement. Her plan was in motion, but its success hinged on Victor's reaction. As the performances began, Victor found himself genuinely engaged for the first time in months. A painter whose abstract work he had once dismissed as unmarketable presented a series that took his breath away. An inventor he had laughed out of his office demonstrated a device that could revolutionize clean energy production. With each presentation, Victor felt a growing sense of unease. He recognized these individuals, remembered his harsh dismissals of their talents, and with each success story, he was forced to confront the short-sightedness of his past actions. As the final performance of the night was announced, Victor's attention was caught by a familiar figure taking the stage. His heart seemed to stop as he recognized Lily, the waitress he had humiliated and then discarded. Lily stood tall, her violin tucked under her chin. Her eyes scanned the crowd, locking with Victor's for a brief, charged moment. Then she began to play. The melody that filled the room was unlike anything Victor had heard before. It was Lily's own composition, a piece that spoke of struggle, resilience, and triumph. As she played, Victor felt as if she was speaking directly to him, challenging him with every note. In that moment, something shifted within Victor. The walls he had built around his heart began to crumble, and he saw with painful clarity the impact of his actions on the lives of others. As Lily's performance came to an end, the room erupted in applause. Victor found himself on his feet, tears streaming down his face. He knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The applause following Lily's performance was deafening, but for Victor Blackwood, the world had gone silent. He stood frozen, his eyes locked on Lily as she took a graceful bow. In that moment, the full weight of his actions, not just towards Lily, but towards all the talented individuals he had dismissed over the years, came crashing down upon him. As the crowd began to disperse, chattering excitedly about the performances, Victor found himself moving towards the stage as if in a trance. Lily, seeing him approach, stiffened visibly, her knuckles white as she gripped her violin. "Miss Chen," Victor began, his voice hoarse with emotion, I don't know what to say." Lily met his gaze steadily, her chin lifted in defiance. "You don't have to say anything, Mr. Blackwood. My music has said it all." Victor nodded, a rueful smile tugging at his lips. "Yes, it certainly has. I owe you an apology. No, I owe you far more than that. I was cruel, short-sighted, and utterly wrong about you." As Victor spoke, Emily approached, a nervous energy radiating from her. "Mr. Blackwood," she interjected, "there's something you need to know. This event, it wasn't just a charity gala. I organized it to show you the talent you've overlooked, the potential you've dismissed." Victor turned to Emily, shock evident on his face. "You did this? All of this?" Emily nodded, bracing herself for Victor's infamous temper. But to everyone's surprise, Victor let out a deep, genuine laugh. "Well, Miss Rhodes," he said, shaking his head in amazement, "it seems I've underestimated you as well. Consider yourself promoted." The tension in the air dissipated slightly, but Lily remained wary. "What happens now, Mr. Blackwood? Another grand gesture followed by abandonment when we don't meet your expectations." Victor's face sobered. "No, Miss Chen. What happens now is I start making amends. To you, to everyone I've wronged. If you'll allow me, I'd like to offer you that sponsorship again. No strings attached this time. Your talent deserves to be nurtured, to be shared with the world." Lily hesitated, years of hard-learned caution warring with the spark of hope in her chest. "And if I refuse?" "Then I'll respect your decision," Victor said softly. "But I hope you'll give me a chance to prove that I can change, that I can use my resources to support talent rather than exploit it." As Lily considered Victor's words, the other performers gathered around, drawn by the unfolding drama. Among them were the painter, the inventor, and others whose lives had been impacted by Victor's past actions. In that charged moment, Lily made a decision that would alter the course of all their lives. "I have a counter-proposal, Mr. Blackwood," she said, her voice ringing clear in the hushed room. "Instead of sponsoring just me, why don't you create a foundation? A way to support and nurture diverse talents across all fields. Emily could run it, given her clear eye for potential." Victor blinked, taken aback by the boldness of Lily's suggestion. He looked around at the assembled artists, inventors, and musicians, seeing for the first time the wealth of talent and potential he had nearly crushed with his callousness. "A foundation," he repeated, the idea taking root in his mind. "Yes, I think that could work. Miss Chen, would you consider being part of its board? Your insight would be invaluable." As Lily nodded her acceptance, a ripple of excitement spread through the room. The cruel millionaire's change of heart, the waitress-turned-violinist's triumph, and the assistant's daring plan had coalesced into something none of them could have anticipated. In that moment, standing amidst the talent he had once dismissed, Victor Blackwood realized that his true legacy would not be measured in dollars, but in the lives he could help transform. And as he shook Lily's hand to seal their agreement, he felt, for the first time in years, a genuine sense of purpose and joy. In the days following the charity gala, Victor Blackwood's world was turned upside down. The creation of the Blackwood Foundation for Arts and Innovation became his sole focus, a project that consumed his waking hours and even invaded his dreams. The first board meeting of the foundation was a far cry from the cutthroat corporate gatherings Victor was accustomed to. Seated around the table were Lily, Emily, and representatives from various artistic and scientific fields. The energy in the room was electric, filled with hope and creative potential. "Welcome, everyone," Victor began, his usual commanding tone tempered with a new humility. "We're here to discuss how we can best use the resources at our disposal to nurture talent and drive innovation." As the meeting progressed, it became clear that resolving the conflicts of the past wouldn't be as simple as throwing money at the problem. Many of the board members, Lily included, were wary of Victor's sudden change of heart. "Mr. Blackwood," one of the artists spoke up, "while we appreciate this opportunity, how can we trust that this isn't just another fleeting interest for you? Many of us have been burned before." Victor nodded, acknowledging the validity of the concern. You're right to be skeptical. I've given you every reason to doubt my intentions. All I can say is that I'm committed to making this work, to using my resources to make a genuine difference. I hope that over time, my actions will speak louder than my words ever could. Lily, watching Victor closely, saw something in his eyes that gave her pause. There was a vulnerability there, a genuine desire to make amends that she hadn't expected. As the meeting continued, the group began to hash out the details of how the foundation would operate. It was decided that grants would be awarded based on merit, with a diverse committee making the selections to avoid any single person having too much influence. Emily, in her new role as the foundation's director, proposed a mentorship program that would pair established professionals with emerging talents. It's not just about funding, she explained. It's about providing guidance, opening doors, and creating a supportive community. The idea was met with enthusiasm, and as the board members began to discuss potential mentors and mentees, Victor found himself on the sidelines, listening intently. It was a novel experience for him, not being the loudest voice in the room, and he found it both humbling and enlightening. As the meeting drew to a close, Lily approached Victor. "You're quieter than I expected," she observed. "The Victor Blackwood I met at the Gilded Rose would have dominated this meeting." Victor smiled ruefully. "That Victor Blackwood needed to learn when to listen. I've got a lot of catching up to do if I want to truly understand the worlds of art and innovation." Lily nodded, a small smile playing at her lips. "Well, it's a start." Over the next few weeks, the foundation began to take shape. Grant applications poured in, each one a testament to the wealth of untapped talent that existed just below the surface of society. Victor found himself working longer hours than he ever had at Blackwood Industries, but for the first time in years, he felt energized rather than drained by his work. However, not everyone was thrilled with Victor's new direction. The board of Blackwood Industries called an emergency meeting, concerned about Victor's apparent shift in priorities. Victor, the head of the board, addressed him sternly. "While we applaud your philanthropic efforts, we're worried that you're neglecting your responsibilities to the company. Our shareholders are getting nervous." Victor listened to their concerns, feeling a familiar anger rising within him. His first instinct was to lash out, to remind them that he had built this company and could do as he pleased. But then he remembered Lily's music, the way it had spoken to something long dormant within him. Taking a deep breath, Victor addressed the board. "I understand your concerns," he began, his voice calm but firm. "But I believe that this foundation is not just good for society, it's good for business. The innovations we nurture, the talents we develop, they have the potential to revolutionize industries, including our own." He went on to outline his vision for how the foundation could work in tandem with Blackwood Industries, fostering innovations that could be developed and brought to market. By the end of his speech, even the most skeptical board members were nodding in agreement. As Victor left the meeting, he felt a sense of accomplishment that went beyond mere business success. He was finding a way to balance his old world with his new purpose, to use his business acumen in service of a greater good. But challenges still lay ahead. As news of the Blackwood Foundation spread, so did scrutiny. Critics questioned Victor's sincerity, pointing to his past behavior as evidence that this was just another publicity stunt. Lily, too, found herself under scrutiny. Some in the music world whispered that she had sold out, trading on her sob story to gain favor with a wealthy patron. As Victor and Lily navigated these new challenges, they found themselves turning to each other for support. Their shared vision for the foundation and their commitment to proving the skeptics wrong began to forge a bond between them that neither had anticipated. The path to redemption and reconciliation was far from smooth. But with each small victory, each life touched by the foundation, Victor felt himself moving closer to becoming the man he now aspired to be. And Lily, watching his transformation with cautious optimism, began to believe that perhaps second chances were possible after all. 6 months after the inception of the Blackwood Foundation, Victor found himself standing backstage at Carnegie Hall. The foundation was hosting its first major concert, featuring a diverse array of musicians who had received grants and mentorship through their programs. Lily, as the headline performer, was set to debut an original composition. As Victor watched the young talents prepare for their performances, he felt a surge of pride unlike anything he had experienced in his business career. These artists, with their dreams and their dedication, represented something pure and valuable that he had overlooked for far too long. Lily approached him, resplendent in a shimmering gown, her violin case clutched tightly in her hand. "Nervous?" she asked, a knowing smile playing on her lips. Victor chuckled softly. "Terrified," he admitted, "but not for the reasons you might think. I'm afraid of letting all of you down, of not living up to the faith you've placed in me and this foundation." Lily's expression softened. "The fact that you're worried about that shows how far you've come, Victor. The man I met at the Gilded Rose wouldn't have cared about letting anyone down." Their conversation was interrupted by Emily, who rushed over with a tablet in hand. "Victor, Lily, you need to see this," she said, her voice tight with excitement. On the screen was a breaking news article. The headline read, "Blackwood Foundation Revolutionizes Arts Funding, a New Model for Philanthropic Engagement." As they skimmed the article, it became clear that the foundation's approach, combining financial support with mentorship and community building, was being hailed as a game-changer in the world of arts and innovation funding. Victor felt a lump form in his throat. This was more than just good publicity. It was validation of everything they had been working towards. He looked up at Lily and Emily, seeing his own emotion reflected in their eyes. "This is just the beginning," he said softly. "We have so much more to do." Lily nodded, her eyes shining. "Yes, we do. And speaking of which, I should get ready for my performance. But Victor, thank you for everything." As Lily walked away to prepare, Victor turned to Emily. "None of this would have been possible without you, Emily. Your vision, your courage in standing up to me. You've changed more lives than you know, including mine." Emily blushed at the praise. "I just did what I thought was right. But Victor, there's something else you should know. Blackwood Industries stock has risen 15% since the foundation launched. Your board is thrilled. It turns out doing good can be good for business too." Victor laughed, shaking his head in wonder. "Who would have thought? Now, let's go watch some incredible performances." As they took their seats in the auditorium, Victor felt a profound sense of peace settle over him. He had found a new direction, one that aligned his business acumen with his rediscovered sense of purpose. The cruel millionaire was gone, replaced by a man committed to nurturing talent and creating opportunities. The lights dimmed, and as Lily took the stage, her violin poised to begin her original composition, Victor knew that his life's true work was just beginning. A year after the Carnegie Hall concert, Victor Blackwood sat in his office surrounded not by stock reports and acquisition plans, but by letters and photographs from the artists and innovators the Blackwood Foundation had supported. He picked up a recent photo of Lily, taken at her solo debut with the New York Philharmonic. Her face was alight with joy as she took her bow, the audience on their feet in a standing ovation. Victor smiled, remembering the waitress he had cruelly forced to play in a restaurant, never imagining the journey that moment would set in motion. A knock on the door interrupted his reverie. It was Emily, now the executive director of the Blackwood Foundation. "Victor," she said, a hint of excitement in her voice, "the results are in from our first year of operations. I think you're going to want to see this." As Victor reviewed the report, his eyes widened. The foundation had supported over 500 artists and innovators across various fields. 30 new patents had been filed as a result of their innovation grants. 15 albums had been produced, 3 of which had gone gold. 2 off-Broadway plays had been staged to critical acclaim. But more than the tangible achievements, it was the stories of personal growth and community impact that moved Victor the most. Artists who had been on the verge of giving up their dreams were now thriving. Scientists whose ideas had been dismissed as too radical were making breakthroughs. "Emily," Victor said, his voice thick with emotion, "this is extraordinary. I never imagined we could make this much of a difference in just 1 year." Emily smiled. "It's been amazing to be part of it, and it's not just the grant recipients who have grown. I've seen a change in you too, Victor. You're not the same man who used to strike fear into the hearts of your employees." Victor nodded, acknowledging the truth in her words. I've learned so much this past year, about art, about innovation, about the power of believing in people, but mostly I've learned about myself. I always thought success was about accumulating wealth and power. Now I know it's about the lives you touch, the potential you help unlock. As if on cue, Lily walked into the office, her presence a vivid reminder of where this journey had begun. Sorry to interrupt, she said, but I wanted to share some news. Remember that music education program we started in underprivileged schools? One of our first students just got accepted to Juilliard on a full scholarship. Victor felt a swell of pride and happiness. That's wonderful news, Lily. Your idea to start that program was inspired. Lily's eyes twinkled. Well, I had a pretty good mentor who taught me the importance of giving back. As the three of them stood there, reflecting on how far they had come, Victor was struck by the realization of how much his life had changed. The cruel, empty man who had tried to humiliate a waitress for his own amusement was gone. In his place was someone who had rediscovered the joy of creation, the fulfillment of nurturing talent, and the deep satisfaction of making a positive impact on the world. You know, Victor said, looking at Lily and Emily, a year ago, I thought I had everything. Now I realize I had nothing of real value. Thank you both for showing me what truly matters. As they shared a moment of quiet understanding, Victor knew that this was just the beginning. There were more lives to touch, more talents to nurture, more innovations to support, and for the first time in his life, he was genuinely excited about the future, not for what he could gain, but for what he could give. 5 years after that fateful night at the Gilded Rose, the Blackwood Foundation held a gala to celebrate its achievements and look towards the future. The grand ballroom was filled with artists, scientists, innovators, and philanthropists, all brought together by a shared vision of nurturing talent and driving positive change. As Victor took the stage to give his speech, he paused, taking in the diverse and vibrant crowd before him. His gaze fell on Lily, now a renowned violinist and a key figure in the Foundation's music education programs. Next to her sat Emily, whose initial act of courage had set this entire journey in motion. 5 years ago, Victor began, his voice resonant with emotion. I was a very different man. I measured success in dollars and cents and viewed people as tools to be used and discarded. But then, a chance encounter opened my eyes to the true nature of talent, perseverance, and the human spirit. He went on to recount the story of how he had cruelly forced a waitress to play the violin, expecting humiliation, but instead discovering extraordinary talent. As he spoke, the room fell silent, captivated by the tale of transformation. That night taught me a valuable lesson, Victor continued. True wealth isn't found in bank accounts or stock portfolios. It's found in the melodies of a violin played with passion, in the brushstrokes of an inspired painter, in the innovations of a scientist working to make the world better. It's found in the moments when we lift each other up, when we nurture potential and celebrate creativity. As Victor concluded his speech, the room erupted in applause. The cruel millionaire was long gone, replaced by a man dedicated to fostering talent and creating opportunities. And as Lily took the stage to perform, her music a testament to the power of second chances and the beauty of realized potential, it was clear that the true magic of that night 5 years ago wasn't just in the talent that had been discovered, but in the ripple effect of kindness and opportunity that continued to spread, touching countless lives and creating a symphony of positive change.